Welcome to the Fair Political Practices Commission's webinar for Local Agency Conflict of Interest Codes. I'm Ivy Branneman and I will be your host. The visual aids used in FPPC workshops are guides which contain only highlights of selected provisions of the law. They do not carry the weight of the law. During the webinar, we will explain what a conflict of interest code is, different types of Form 700 filers, 3 components of conflict of interest codes, how to identify necessary changes to your agency's conflict of interest code, and for multi-county agencies, the approval process. Regulation 18750 was recently amended by the FPPC and streamlines the amendment process for multi-county agencies. The last part of the webinar is specifically about multi-county agency code approvals, because the FPPC is your code reviewing body. At that time, we will announce to the rest of the audience that they may not want to stay. All government agencies must adopt a conflict of interest code, whether it is a college district, water district, school district, or any other type of government agency. A conflict of interest code is the legal instrument requiring those individuals holding designated positions to disclose their financial interests. Persons required to be designated are those who make or participate in making governmental decisions, which we will go into more detail later. The code also specifies what interest filers have to report based on their level of decision-making. A public official or employee holds a position that involves making or participating in making governmental decisions. That position is designated in the Conflict of Interest Code, and the position's disclosure is based on decisions the position authorizes the filer to make. The position then files a Form 700. The form serves as a reminder to the employee of potential conflicts and serves as a public document so members of the public are aware of those potential conflicts. A designated position in a conflict of interest code is often referred to as a code filer because the position files Form 700 based on its designation in the conflict of interest code. On the other hand, a position that files a Form 700 because it is listed or meets the criteria as a public investment manager is referred to as an 87200 filer. The officials listed on the screen must file the Form 700 because they are required to by state law, not the agency's Conflict of Interest Code, and they must also file under full disclosure. For those of you who are amending a city or county code, these positions should not be listed as designated positions. Public officials and employees who manage public investments are also listed in Government Code Section 87200. Typically, this means your retirement board or investment board, but may also include employees or consultants who establish a policy or make decisions regarding the investment of public monies. This does not include individuals who work under the supervision of a financial manager. The Commission has developed specialized language to use in your Conflict of Interest Code for public officials who manage public investments. We urge you to use this language as a reminder to filing officers and filers that public investment managers must file a Form 700, even though they are not designated in the code. All local agencies should have recently received the biennial notice, which must be completed each even-numbered year. All of the biennial notice information is available on our website. Please note that October 1st falls on a weekend, so the due date for the biennial notice is October 3rd. Here is a sample of a completed biennial notice. Please note that city and single county agency notices are not returned to the FPPC. These are generally returned to the code reviewing body, which is the City Council for city codes and the County Board of Supervisors for local agencies with jurisdiction in a single county. Multi-county agencies return the biennial notice to the FPPC. These are the code reviewing bodies for each type of agency. City agencies need to file the biennial notice with the City Council by October 3rd. County agencies need to file the biennial notice with the county by October 3rd as well. Multi-county agencies need to return the completed notice to the FPPC by October 3rd. As a preliminary step, we recommend that you compare your conflict of interest code to your agency's existing organizational structure and ask yourself the following questions. Have new positions or divisions been created, abolished? Have duties merged? Have duties of positions designated in the code changed to warrant adjusting their disclosure obligations? Next, we will discuss the three components of a conflict of interest code. Conflict of interest codes can be broken down into three main components. The first is the terms of the code, or the incorporation page, which incorporates Regulation 18730. Regulation 18730 includes all of the legal code requirements, such as when statements are due and where statements are filed. The second component is the list of designated positions. These are the positions that are required to file the Form 700. The third component is the disclosure categories. These specify what types of interest filers need to report on the Form 700. Here is a sample of the first page, or incorporation page, of the Conflict of Interest Code. The first paragraph includes incorporation language. By incorporating the Political Reform Act, your code remains current, even though the Political Reform Act or regulations may change. The benefit of using the incorporation language is that your code does not require constant monitoring to ensure it is legally up to date. For example, the gift limit changes every 2 years. For agencies that incorporate by reference, these legislative and regulatory changes are automatically part of your code provisions. The second paragraph indicates where the Form 700s are filed. The FPPC receives and retains some of the original statements for some multi-county agencies. While reviewing your code, you will work with the code reviewing body to determine where a statement should be filed. For multi-county agencies, please note that the FPPC, as a code reviewing body, does not permit Form 700s to be filed in private offices, such as a law firm or accountant's office. The list of designated positions is every position in your agency that is involved in making or participating in making governmental decisions. You always want to include specific titles in your list. Working titles are permitted, but keep in mind that the goal is to ensure that filers and members of the public know exactly who has to file statements for your agency. Making a decision means voting on a matter, approving the budget, adopting policy, making purchasing decisions, entering into contracts. Typically, board members, the head of the agency, and top-level managers are making decisions such as these. It is easy to determine if these types of positions should be listed in the code. Generally, these positions will be assigned the highest level of disclosure. Participating in a decision means negotiating the terms of a contract, writing the specifications of a bid, or advising or making recommendations to the decision maker or governing body without significant intervening substantive review. In addition to the final decision makers, we also want to see these positions in your conflict of interest code, unless there is some form of what we call intervening substantive review over their work. For example, a position may participate in making decisions for your agency according to the definition on this slide, but she may also have several levels of review over her work product. If this is the case, we do not want to designate the position in the code. Each agency is unique, which is why duty statements should be reviewed. A position participates in making governmental decisions and needs to be designated in the code even if the work is reviewed by superiors if any of the following apply. The superiors rely on the data or analysis without checking it independently. The superiors rely on the position's professional judgment, or the position in some other way influences the final decision. When reviewing your list of designated positions, keep your top-level decision makers in the code. Eliminate positions that are strictly clerical, secretarial, ministerial, or manual in nature, such as typist clerks or custodial staff. Next, review the duty statements for all of the positions in between those two levels to determine if they need to be included in the list of designated positions. We have found that it is helpful to work with division chiefs and employees in other divisions to designate positions appropriately and assign accurately tailored disclosure categories to those positions. This is a visual of what we just discussed. The positions on the top, the broad policy decision makers, should be designated in the code with broad disclosure. The positions on the bottom, those that do not make or participate in making decisions, should not be designated in the code. Use job duty statements and organizational charts as tools to verify the level of decision-making for those positions in the middle, and properly tailor their disclosure level if they are included in the code. Based on the duties, which of the following positions should be designated in the agency's code? The Director of Operations, who prepares and administers the department budget, as well as working independently in the development of capital improvement projects, or the Administrative Assistant, who prepares accounting spreadsheets and meeting minutes. The Director of Operations is directly involved in the development of a department's budget, whereas the Administrative Assistant appears to perform solely ministerial functions. Thus, the Director of Operations would be designated and the Administrative Assistant would not. Other than those which are solely advisory, when a board or commission is formed, the members must file under full disclosure until the positions are included in a conflict of interest code. For board and commission members, including alternates, Form 700s are due no later than 30 days after assuming office. A common example would be a county establishes a commission to study land use issues. If the committee is not solely advisory, for instance, it has a budget or can approve or disapprove of a plan, the committee members must file the Form 700 within 30 days of assuming the position and have full disclosure. The statute requires that these new boards and commissions cannot be subject to limited disclosure in advance of a conflict of interest code being formally adopted and approved, or until the board or commission is added to an existing code. They must file with full disclosure. The code reviewing body makes the determination on whether a board or commission is solely advisory. Sometimes this will involve a detailed analysis, and, if assistance is required, the code reviewing body can request written advice from the FPPC. We all know that the board members, their alternates, and top-level management should be designated. The focus is on middle management positions and how they would be designated. Here is a random sample of positions that are commonly designated. Remember, the disclosure categories are different for each agency. Your Category 1 may not be the same as Category 1 in another agency's code. Newly budgeted positions, which have been newly created since January 1st, 2010, that are not yet designated in your agency's Conflict of Interest Code, must still file a Form 700 if they are making or participating in making governmental decisions. These positions must file under the broadest disclosure category in your agency's code until such time that their positions are included in the code. However, your agency may limit their disclosure requirements. Form 804 is not required, but is available for this option on the FPPC website. For example, if you fill a position allocated in your budget in 2009 that was vacant until 2010, this regulation does not apply. The classification has to be newly created on or after January 1st, 2010. You must also include consultants in your list of designated positions. Consultants include external positions who make decisions on behalf of your agency or serve in a staff capacity, and in that capacity, perform duties that would otherwise be performed by a designated position. Keep in mind that not every outside contractor will meet the consultant definition, and your agency needs to have a mechanism in place to make these determinations. Form 700s are filed by the individual who meets the consultant definition, not by the firm they own or are employed by. If you have positions that you think may qualify as consultants, but you are not sure, after reviewing the contract with your legal counsel and your code reviewing body, you may request written advice from the FPPC or search our existing advice letters for general guidance. Consultants default to the broadest disclosure category in the code. If your agency wishes to limit a consultant's disclosure, this must be done in writing and may be done by using the Form 805. This is the recommended standard consultant and new position language, and, as it indicates, a written description may be used to provide narrowly tailored disclosure for consultants or new positions. The Forms 804 and 805 may be used to provide the narrowly tailored disclosure. If your code does not currently include this language, it should be added during the next code amendment. The benefit to using this language is that you do not continually have to amend your code when new consultants are hired who need to file. Next, we will discuss disclosure categories. Disclosure categories make up the third component of your code. They describe the types of economic interest that your designated positions must report when completing their Form 700s. You must ensure that your disclosure requirements are narrowly tailored to only require the disclosure of interest that may be affected by the designated position's specific power and authority. Disclosure should be tailored to the duties performed. People commonly err on the side of caution and require positions to report too much. You may not designate everybody in full disclosure out of an abundance of caution. Not only is this illegal, but it opens your code for challenge. There are 2 court cases listed on your screen that address this concern. Does the designated position participate in decisions affecting real property? If the answer is no, do not require the disclosure of interest in real property. If you do include real property, you may limit it to a specific region. For example, if you have a position that handles only offices or branches in a specific part of your agency's jurisdiction, then employees can disclose property located only within their assigned region. You can limit real property further by requiring disclosure of only those types of real property interests that are of the type to be sold or leased by the agency. When determining what type of real property disclosure you need, if any, it's important to find out who handles your agency's building leases. Which of the following positions should be required to report real property interest? The claims manager, an information technology director, a planning director, an appraiser, or a personnel director? Only the appraiser and planning director positions could reasonably be assumed to have authority to make decisions that could have an effect on real property. This is a common category for those people that make purchasing decisions. Most codes for larger agencies have 2 categories, one for officials that have agency-wide purchasing authority, and the second category reads the same, except in the place of the word agency is division or department or whatever term your agency may use. For example, the director would have agency-wide disclosure and a division's administrative services manager, because the position only purchases products for the division, would be assigned to the division-wide category. Larger agencies will probably need the 2 different categories. Here is an example of a disclosure category for an agency that regulates healthcare services. It is helpful to include a short list of examples to provide guidance on the types of interests that should be reported. However, the list should not be all-inclusive. Here is another example of narrowing the category to the interests that are regulated, licensed, or for which the agency has oversight authority. This is a standard disclosure category for agencies who have an IT division. Many IT positions are highly paid, but they do not make purchasing decisions or participate in such decisions. Those positions are not required to be included in the code. If you're not sure what IT positions to designate, you should review the job descriptions for those positions or discuss the duties of those positions with the supervisor to determine what positions should be included. When drafting your agency's disclosure categories, ask yourself these questions. If you answer yes to any of these questions, you should add a category for grants, licensing entities, enforcement, and/or auditing to the Conflict of Interest Code. The FPPC checks agencies' annual reports and committee reports because these documents provide valuable information on the duties and functions of the agency and assist in determining what types of categories to include. Sample language for disclosure categories is available on our website. The gift limit and honoraria ban offer another good reason to limit disclosure to just those types of financial interest your designated employees may affect in the course of their duties. Time for a quick quiz. A person's duties include approving licensing programs for healthcare providers. Which of the following disclosure categories best suits this type of position? The correct answer is the second category. This provides a good example of what we mean by narrowly tailoring the disclosure requirements for a specific position. We don't want to have the position report too much or too little. Ultimately, we want a disclosure category that requires only those interests that are specific to the position's duties and responsibilities. This person would not be subject to the gift limit and honoraria ban from all sources, but only those sources that may be affected by the duties the position performs. Tailoring disclosure requirements can be tricky at times, so be sure to check with your FPPC consultant if you are a multi-county agency, or your agency attorney if you are a city or county agency. To recap, do not give full disclosure to positions with limited decision-making authority. Do not list Schedule A or any other schedule in the code. Stating that a filer must report on Schedule A2 does not tell them what to report, only where to report. The schedule letters may also change at any time. Do not add other ethics-related provisions to the code. They should be in a separate document, such as a statement of incompatible activities. Do not add gift limit due dates. These are incorporated by reference in Regulation 18730. You have amended your code to include all the positions that should be designated, and you have assigned clear and concise disclosure categories. Now, contact your code reviewing body for further instructions. Each code reviewing body may have specific procedures for you to follow. We do not mandate specific procedures, except for multi-county agencies, which we'll discuss momentarily. Each city and county will have its own internal procedures and controls concerning code approvals. Remember that a conflict of interest code is not effective until it is approved by the code reviewing body. The Political Reform Act provides local agencies discretion in how they amend the code. However, you must develop a code in a manner that guarantees to employees, members, and officers adequate notice, and the forum for them to present their views. It is up to each code reviewing body to determine how it accomplishes that. For the duration of the presentation, we will discuss amendment procedures for multi-county agencies. If you are a city or county agency, these requirements do not apply to you. Code reviewing bodies may find it beneficial to adopt a list of required documentation for the agencies that are seeking an amendment, such as organizational charts and minutes of meetings, and may find it helpful to know what documentation the FPPC requires, so we welcome you to stay if you are interested. Next, we will discuss the approval process for multi-county agencies. There are two types of code amendments, substantive and non-substantive. Substantive amendments are more involved and require you to submit several documents to the FPPC. Non-substantive amendments are much simpler. Only the proposed code and CEO declaration are required for non-substantive amendments. However, if you discover you need to add positions or change disclosure categories, your amendment will be substantive. The documents required for substantive amendments are listed on the screen. Job descriptions and organizational charts may also be requested, as they are used to ensure that designated positions and disclosure categories are appropriate. Anytime a new position or revised disclosure category is proposed, it is a substantive amendment. If you are submitting a non-substantive or substantive amendment, the first step is to submit your strikeout underlined version of the code to the FPPC. Strikeout means showing what you intend to delete from the code, and underscore means showing that which you intend to add to the code. In the example on the screen, Outreach Services was renamed Community Services. The Outreach Services Director was renamed Community Services Manager. You may include your explanation of reasons in the text of the code, or include those explanations in a separate document. A sample explanations and changes fact sheet is available on our website. Once the draft conflict of interest code and the required documents are received, the FPPC will conduct an initial review. FPPC staff will follow up with you on any questions or concerns regarding the draft conflict of interest code and may request additional documentation. This consultation process may result in changes to the draft code. Once the FPPC and the agency agree on the draft code, it is ready for public notice. Please note that the FPPC does not require that your agency's board approve the code. You should review your agency's internal policy to determine if the code needs board approval. Multi-county agencies should not start the notice period until the FPPC has given the green light that the code amendment is mutually acceptable to both agencies. Agencies must provide a public comment period of at least 45 days. All employees must be notified and provided 45 days to comment. Notification may be completed via email or internet. Agencies provide the FPPC with any comments received. The FPPC will also conduct a 45-day public notice period with the Office of Administrative Law. If suggestions during the public comment period result in changes or modification to the draft code, no further public notice is required as long as the code is substantially similar to the originally noticed code. We recommend sending your agency's notice to all staff through email. A sample email is on the screen. You may also post the notice on your agency's internal website or in your agency's break room. FPPC will require you to send us an email with verification that the notice was provided to ensure that all affected parties had the opportunity to comment. Once the notice periods have concluded, the FPPC will submit the code for approval to our Senior Commission Counsel. The code will be effective 30 days after the date of that signature. The FPPC will send you a copy of the final approved code. On your screen, we have provided the most common questions about when the next Form 700 for positions are due. Please remember to always provide a copy of the Conflict of Interest Code to your filers. Please take a look at our website, where you will be able to access the resources listed on your screen. Thank you for joining us.